So we just watched Killers of the Flower Moon, and we've got a special guest reviewer, Casey. So
Hey,
we will have a full review in just 1 second.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby.
OG boy. Know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my side. Know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another iPopcorn for that review. I'm Chris.
I'm Nick.
and I'm Casey.
Yeah, so first time having a guest reviewer on here. Excited to have you on here, man.
It's gonna be a
Man.
disaster.
This movie just about left me speechless. So I'm kicking it over to you guys. What do you guys want to say here? Let's start with positives because I have some of those. But how about you guys? What do you think about it?
Dude, I thought it was like a real powerful movie. I haven't read the book, obviously, but it's a story about a really dark period in our nation's history. Scorsese killed it. It's good.
What about you, Casey?
Yeah, I'm not the biggest Scorsese fanboy, but movies that I have seen by him, I love. I mean, I appreciate him as a filmmaker. He's, up there with like Quentin Tarantino, where basically knocks you out of the park every time. It just really depends on the subject matter. There's some movies of his that I've skipped where it's like, nah, not really interested. And this one, yes, it's very dark, deep, messed up story in our history, as Nick said. And even despite the filmmaking of Scorsese and everything, just the subject matter kept me going through and through.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even fully realize how much this was going to be. I didn't look up a whole lot going into this, and I didn't know necessarily how much they stuck with the truth of the matter, but it seems like for the most part, they're telling the real story here. A couple things here are massaged out. So, like, casting Robert De Niro as a man who was 45 when this started, isn't it? That's one thing.
Yeah, I think Scorsese just loves De Niro and
you gotta do it,
DiCaprio. Yeah. I mean,
And
the
I didn't
acting.
realize, by the way, I didn't realize this was the first time that Scorsese and De Niro and DiCaprio have all made a movie together. They've
I
all
didn't either.
they made a bunch of
Really?
obviously De Niro and Scorsese have made a bunch. DiCaprio and Scorsese have made a bunch, and actually there's been a few with De Niro and DiCaprio, but never all three until now. So.
I saw a funny little fact earlier today, actually, that I was reading that apparently Scorsese and De Niro were like getting a little irritated with Leonardo DiCaprio because he was trying to ad-lib too much. And it was like, just stick to the script, guy.
Yeah, they'd like eye roll at each other once in a while. I saw that. I saw that too. Yeah.
I could think of a scene right now, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I know what you're thinking of, honestly.
Yeah, and so this was the result of a script overhaul, by the way. So, this was going to be a very different movie. It was going to be the Jesse Plemons character. So Jesse Plemons plays an FBI agent who's sent to Oklahoma to investigate these murders of the Osage people. And that character was going to be the star of the movie, the hero of the movie, and that was going to be DiCaprio. And DiCaprio demanded that they change the direction of the movie and make it so that he's the nephew of the ringleader of all this, De Niro's character, William Hale.
Yeah.
Bill Hale.
Mm-hmm.
He just felt like the story of the Osage people was like the more interesting story, and the relation. He felt like he could kind of map the relationship of him and Lily Gladstone's character Molly, kind of map that onto like the betrayal of the Osage people by the people, like the white people kind of infiltrating this reservation. So I'm glad it got that overhaul. I mean, I'm sure it's Scorsese, I'm sure it would have been a good movie anyway, but I'm glad it got that overhaul in direction because because this is the movie we got out of it. So
yeah, do you know if the book is based, like if that's what the book is based off of, the original script? Or is it more of what we got? Or do you?
I think the book is more procedural. It's like about the facts of the case. I don't know if it tells like a narrative storyline like this, but
Gotcha.
I don't know, so I don't want to be wrong about it. But I know like the direction that they were going before was trying to stay more true to the book. And then this is Leo's overhaul of that. And actually Paramount said this was going to be overly emotional and sentimental, and they let Leo shop this himself, so that's when Apple TV picked it up. Presumably there's some like forthcoming, maybe earlier than you would think, Apple TV Plus release of this. I don't know, but I hope they let it play in theaters for a while because I think this is one that deserves to be seen on the big screen if you can possibly do so. It adds some impact to it on a big screen, I think. Yeah, any other like specific pros here? I mean, I guess there's a lot to say. Anything else stand out to you guys?
I thought the acting was really great. Everybody did a pretty great job. There was one I'll talk about in the cons that I didn't think was very great. But like overall, like the emotion from the actors was very, very good.
Lily Gladstone, for me specifically, this is my first introduction to her. I know she's been on like First Cow and Certain Women, and a couple other things. This is my first time seeing her, and I thought she did outstanding on this. It's like a real understated, quiet storm kind of performance. You can tell there's a lot of gears turning behind the eyes kind of thing, but it's like real stoic and statuesque. Just she's very level the whole way through until extreme things happen to her, but just a real powerful performance from her, I thought.
I will say, yeah, Lily Gladstone, great performance. However, I was pretty distracted every time I looked at her. I'll tell you, she looks and talks exactly like an older actress. Her name is Bebe Neuwirth. And you would probably know her as she's Frasier's ex-wife, and she played the principal in The Faculty, a pretty good horror movie. And she has the same facial features, and they talk exactly the same. If you close your eyes, you'd be like similar voices. So I was pretty distracted by that.
I'd have to rewatch The Faculty and remind myself, but I've definitely seen The Faculty before and like that too. That's a campy, good time of a movie for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I also thought like a big standout to me was, I mean, overall like production design and set design and everything is outstanding. Obviously, this had a huge budget. It's the highest budget an R-rated movie's ever had.
Oh, wow.
But the big thing for me, like the costume design is unbelievable, I thought. Like, especially the Osage people's costume designs, but everybody's costume design is super, super well done and looks like very true to the period. Even when it looks a little goofy, it's like, well, they did wear stuff like that, like De Niro sunglasses.
Oh, yeah.
Or the driving glasses or whatever those are called. But yeah, all the costume design, especially Molly's costume design, I thought. And actually, some of the acting here from like the elders and the Osage people when they're having those meetings and stuff, I thought that added a lot of like authenticity and realism to this. And it felt like we're just peering in on a meeting like this really happening, you know?
Yeah.
And the guy gave a heck of a speech, so.
Yeah, especially the guy, like that speech that seemed like not just a monologue being delivered. Like he had a little hems and haws in there, like.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot in this movie that I think that they did allow for some like realism of speech, where it's not just like strict, sticking to the script the whole way through. What are some of the things that held you guys back at all, if any, on this movie?
I mean, really, just this is going to be the obvious one, but my biggest gripe is just the length.
I agree.
Mean, and the way my brain works, when I'm watching something that long, I start to overanalyze and just pick things out that could have been cut. Like, that's unnecessary. Didn't need that. Like, I'll give an example. Like, when they're getting married, when Leo's character and Lily are getting married, there's a part where they cut to one of the party guests who you never see again, and he's drinking moonshine and he's doing like a drunken jig for what seemed like 45 seconds, and they hold on him. Like, cut that out.
Oh, that was strange. Isn't that the guy that ended up being one of the hired killers or something?
I think it might have been.
It kind of looked like that Blackie character.
That doesn't mean that the scene should stay in. I do think if I was going to pick a scene to cut out, that probably would have. I didn't really see the point in a whole lot of that. Yeah. I agree with you there. Yeah. Actually, the link, for some reason, the link did not bother me on this. Maybe it's just I went into it knowing, I've known for a while now, like I got to prepare myself for a pretty long movie. And sometimes I'm having a hard time sitting in a movie theater seat for that long. But something about this story really, like, I kind of can immerse myself in it and just got sucked into the story. And I wasn't really noticing the time passing by. I didn't want it to end until it met a resolution. And I thought, by the way, I gotta mention this here because I'm just because I'm thinking of it. I guess this is a little spoilery, but the way this movie ends, like the epilogue, I thought was a really interesting way to do it. I wanted to hear what you guys thought about the handling of the epilogue at the end of this.
Loved it.
You did love it?
I thought it was super creative because typically when you're watching these based on true story biopics or what have you, it'll just cut to black. Maybe they'll show some pictures and it's just like, captions like such and such.
Added a lot.
Blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm. I think this added a lot to that. And also the other end of the thing is they could have reenacted what's happening. Like they could have had like clips of things happening as these people are older. But when movies do that, it's always like excessive like old age makeup on people and kind of like reads overly silly to wrap it up. And I thought doing this like it's like a live performance of a radio show was really cool. And we got a pretty cool cameo in that with Jack White. And,
I was gonna say
got that.
And Martin Scorsese.
Right.
At the very end, given the kind of the last line of spoken dialogue is Scorsese.
There was a cute older couple sitting a couple of seats down from me the whole movie, and I was laughing. It was fun, but like whenever something really violent or happened on screen, the woman was like, like all making shocked noises. But then like at the end when Scorsese came up, I just saw the husband just like kind of point out like, "Hey, it's him."
Here I come. Oh, here I come.
That's the guy.
That's the guy.
I mean, the violence in this
Yeah,
too, even like there was quite a decent bit. It wasn't gratuitous. Like when somebody got killed, it was kind of like in the background type of thing almost. Except for
I feel
like there was a stabbing, but even that was like not that bad.
There
Well,
wasn't
he
even
doesn't.
stabbing noises.
Yeah, he doesn't even add any sound effects to it, which to me added to the realism of it. Like you
Yeah.
didn't have this like overdone Foley work or whatever, where you have like this somebody stabbing a cube of Jello or whatever. It's like that's really what it probably would sound like and look like to see somebody get stabbed. And the way this handles death in general is very like there's just a cold quickness to it, and it just adds to the realism of all of it. It feels like you're kind of makes you feel like you're watching an actual homicide take place, unfortunately. But yeah, and just it's crazy to see how much like so for a little background on this, like at the beginning of this movie, we see the Osage people having this like ceremony where they're sort of symbolically burying this ceremonial pipe in the ground as a way of saying like we're mourning the loss of some of our traditions and the Osage ways and everything because of the assimilation of our children into the like the white culture. And they bury this pipe. They're very like somber and mournful, and that's how we. And I thought that was a great start to this movie. And then you see Osage people just wandering through like the Badlands, and oil erupts from the ground, and then it just cuts to like this story that I don't think I was very aware of. I mean, I'm sure I've been told this at some point, but without this, I like that this movie brought a spotlight, put a spotlight on it. But it just cuts to like black and white footage of the Osage people, which I don't think this is actual. Like it's the actors. But
Yeah,
it's
I think so.
It's done really realistically and looks like old timey footage of all their prosperity, and like it's done like a little movie telling you about what's happened with the Osage people and how they've just products of fortune and they struck oil and now they're like the wealthiest people per capita, but they all have to have like white handlers that deal with all their finances and stuff. So it is very much like it's like an underhanded. Oh, you guys sure struck it big, but like you can't make your own decisions because you're obviously still savages. I mean,
You can't make a withdrawal. You need your guardian. Like,
yeah, that's what they call them. I was trying to think of the word. They call them guardians. Yeah,
because I'm imagining what happened was like the oil companies came in to drill, so it's all like white people drilling on their land, but then they're basically leasing their land to these people and getting paid oil rights for drilling their oil for them, but they have to have like some white guardianship to let them take their money out of their own accounts.
Yeah, so the hook of this movie is like we have this situation where white men are taking advantage of being able to like marry into the rights to this land, and some people are getting removed from the earth to put money in people's pockets, and it all really like starts to culminate, and it starts to be, man, the more it went on, the more I was like, this is unbelievable, the amount of death and stuff. It almost doesn't even do it justice to how like if you couldn't even focus on all the different deaths and all the different people involved because you wouldn't know any of the characters by the end of it. Yeah, it's like people just descend, and then the fact that they call these men who have married into this land right, they call their wives their blankets, and I was like, golly,
Right.
so cold.
And they call them coyotes because they know what they're doing.
There was a line that really stuck out to me. The moment he said it, I was like, oof. Ernest, at one point, he's reading through this book about the history of the Osage people, and it's like this picture book, and there's a picture of wolves in the grass, and he says, can you find the wolves in this picture? And I was like, ooh, that's one of those lines that's like, and that's the movie. Can you find the wolves in the picture? And another line that really stuck out to me when he's starting to form his relationship with Molly, who will eventually become his wife, and they're like drinking some whiskey or something. Or they start to drink some whiskey, but then it's storming outside. She says, "This is a strong storm. I think we just need to be quiet for a little while." And like, as soon as the credits dropped on this movie, I was kind of thinking like, that's a strong movie. I need to be quiet for a little while. Like I need to think on that for a minute, because I think this does give you a lot to chew on and think about and talk about with people afterwards for sure.
So like besides the runtime length being a con for you, Casey, and for me, I know Chris, you said it was fine for you. Like there's definitely a couple of times I was checking my phone and I was like, wow, I still have 2 hours left in this movie, because I feel like it is kind of slow for like the first hour of the movie at least. The other con that I have is the conversations that they have sometimes in the Osage language. Like sometimes there's subtitles, sometimes there's not. And in some of those in some of those conversations where there's not subtitles, like it's a decently long conversation that I would have liked to have known what they were saying instead of trying to just like infer what was said through what's happening in the room or whatever.
I do understand that.
There's a lengthy conversation between Ernest and Molly regarding her insulin, and it's not subtitled. And I'm like, I almost like for a second thought, did something go wrong with this print that I'm watching?
They forgot to put the subtitles.
That's happened before, but no. But then I thought, there were subtitles earlier in the beginning, so why are there no subtitles here? But you could kind of infer how the conversation goes. Kind of a minor gripe, because people could say, "Oh, you could tell how the conversation goes. You don't need it to be hand fed to you." Like, yeah, okay, but
for how long the conversation is, though, I would have liked a little more context besides just trying to get what it is from what's going on.
Yeah. I can see both sides of it. It didn't really bother me in the moment of the movie because I felt like he was strategic about when he did that. But yeah, there were a couple times where it's like, it would have been nice to know what's actually being said here. More than half the time, I think it was subtitled probably. I will say, like, not that he's like unrecognizable or anything, but the mouthpiece, like the teeth prosthetic that they put on Leo is borderline distracting.
A little bit,
sometimes in this. And like he does this thing with it. Maybe this is based on the real character or whatever, but he has this way of holding his jaw, holding his mouth. It's very like, I don't know, almost Sling Blade or something. Like he's just got this scowl on him almost the whole movie, just like.
I was curious, like, because I looked it up at one point, and Ernest Burkhardt, I think he's like an amalgamation of a couple different people maybe in real life. And were they like basing his look off the key player in real life? Because I'm like, this seems like unnecessary for him to be wearing these prosthetics if he's not even playing character from real life.
A real person, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. Maybe that was just a choice on Leo's part. I mean, he is somebody that gets, wrapped up in these roles, and his acting is still great. I don't want to take anything away from that. I just thought, like, once in a while, I did find this is a long movie. You're looking at him a lot of the time, and I found myself just being drawn back to that jaw and him being, like, having that scowl on him the whole time. I'm like, that was a choice, but it doesn't really take away from the movie for me. I still thought, like, I felt the emotion behind this. There's chemistry between the leads. De Niro's obviously awesome as always. He is like fighting his real accent the whole way through this movie.
Yeah.
Trying to make it something else. It almost would have been better if he had just embraced his regular accent, because he is kind of like half changing his accent, but still strong acting from everybody.
It's almost like he tried to do a little, like, not as strong, but like a little bit of his Cape Fear accent, where it's like the real Southern thing, but it just doesn't come through as well.
He doesn't quite nail a Southern accent. It's hard to take that accent out of him. It was also good to see. I don't know if you guys recognize or know these guys. I know you maybe know one of these, but it was kind of cool to see Jason Isbell and Sturgill Simpson.
Yeah, I was thinking that was Sturgill Simpson. I wasn't sure.
For me, like, if I'm going to listen to country music at all, that's about the list of two that I go to. So interesting to see them on the same movie together, directed by one of my favorite directors. Like, this was cool. And Jason Isbell has a pretty integral role. Like, he's the husband of one of the sisters of of Molly, our main character here.
Bill Smith.
Yeah, Bill Smith. Any other?
That's why I didn't recognize them. They're both country stars.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
but they're like kind of alternative country, so it's not like you wouldn't hear them on the radio necessarily. But
okay,
it's got kind of a different, like Sturgill Simpson will write country song, like outlaw country music about like doing psychedelic drugs and stuff like that.
Okay, because as I was watching it, I'm looking at these guys and I'm feeling, these guys feel like they're famous and I should know who they are, but I don't.
Right, well, Sturgill Simpson was in the most recent season of Righteous Gemstones, if you've watched that.
Didn't we both just see him on a movie, too?
I did. I kind of recognized him, but the other guy...
What was the Sturgill Simpson movie we saw?
I can't remember. It was recent, though.
Yeah, what else do you guys want to say? Casey, you got any nuggets of wisdom you're holding on to over there?
No, not really. Well, I do want to give a shout out to very late in the movie appearances by John Lithgow and Brendan Fraser as the prosecutor and defendant.
Yes. Yeah, I didn't want to forget about them either. Yeah.
Yeah, I see. That was the one that I hate to say it, didn't do that great of a job for how short of a scene he had as Brendan Fraser. Like, there's a scene
you think so?
Like, there's just like a couple of lines that were delivered, and I was like, ooh, that was not great. Whenever they're like in the room with basically the whole town, and he's trying to decide, Ernest is trying to decide what he's gonna do. and Brendan Fraser's like talking to him. He's like, is that what you want, boy? And, like, just the way he says it, I'm like, oh, okay.
I guess I know what you mean a little bit, but I like the performance, and John Lithgow, I just don't think has ever put a foot wrong ever. So
No.
Anytime I see that guy on stuff, and it's cool because this is like working with Scorsese has been on his bucket list forever, and so he got to tick that off the list, which is cool. He had said it in an interview at one point that he would like work the craft, like the concessions table on a Scorsese movie just to be in the presence. Right. That guy. So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned John Lithgow and Brendan Fraser though, because that was nice to see. It's a little bit of a crowded cast, or it runs the risk of feeling like a little bit of a crowded cast. Like I felt like the brother of Ernest, our main character here. The brother gets kind of lost in the movie a little bit, and he actually probably played just as much of a role as Ernest in what happened in this movie. I don't think he got a whole lot of screen time or had as much to do as maybe. But you just can't give everybody here. You got 3.5 hours of movie, and you can't, even in that amount of time, you can't give everybody a whole lot of screen time. But I feel like what this feels like the opposite of Oppenheimer for me, like the opposite of our Oppenheimer review, where for me this just felt like borderline masterpiece. There's just a couple little things that held it back, but not enough to really change me from calling this a big win. Am I on the right track, or you're like a little bit under?
Look, I liked it. It's a good movie. The subject matter is really good. It's definitely not my favorite Martin Scorsese movie. Like, I probably won't even watch this one again. Like, as to where The Departed, if it's on TV, I'm gonna watch it. Or,
Sure.
Wolf of Wall Street or Shutter Island. I love those movies. This was good, but for me, it's definitely not one of my favorite movies by him.
What about you, Casey? I don't know. You said you didn't go into this as the biggest Scorsese fan, but you like what you've seen. So where does this kind of fall in there?
I love a lot of Scorsese's older movies, and lately his newer movies, he's been kind of like, he's at that stage where he's like, I'm making this movie for me, and just the length and everything.
Like a little self-indulgent.
I wouldn't say self-indulgent, because the subject matter, it is pretty messed up, and I could tell he really wanted to tell the world this story, because I didn't know about this leading up to it. I was like, oh, this happened. Wow. No surprise, but it happened. And yeah, I just feel like I share Nick's sentiment. I agree, it's great, it's good, but I'll probably never see it again.
Do you think there's a better 2.5 hour movie in here?
Yeah, I'd say it could definitely be trimmed down, or at the very least, I was thinking to myself a few times, like, man, Scorsese, you should just go into TV, make a miniseries.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to tell something this long, do a miniseries. Someone will greenlight it.
Because even if it's just like 3 episodes or 4 episodes at that point, and they're an hour long, it's gonna be way easier to like sit down and watch it and not have to be in a theater for 3.5 hours.
This could have been done. This could have been a 5.5 hour miniseries for sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And I don't know that would have. I like this as the movie that it is, but that could have been cool. Maybe there is more to glean from the story, but I didn't find myself finding a whole lot. Like I've watched other movies this length where there's so much fat on it, and I can see so many places where you could trim it down. I think the most recent movie before this of Scorsese's that I've seen was Silence, and that's a pretty long movie too. And I know he did Irishman, which I for some reason have not seen, even though it's on Netflix right now. And that was actually even longer than this. That was 209 minutes. So, So he is on a roll of making really lengthy movies for sure, and that's not going to be everybody's cup of tea.
And I know it's because of the pandemic for sure, but yeah, Irishman, it was on Netflix. So at least with me, I know some film purists will be like, no, you can't do that. But I have no problem pausing for bathroom breaks. And when a movie's on Netflix, I can do that. So I didn't have a problem with its length because I was able to pause and watch it at my leisure, which I know some people will be like, ooh. But hey,
and I'm better at paying attention to a movie all the way through if I'm sitting in a movie theater rather than being at home. And so I'm glad that I watched this in the theater because I'm glad I watched this in the theater because I wouldn't want to like zone out through part of this movie. But I think it does hold your attention. I didn't find myself zoning out or anything like that. So.
Oh no, yeah, just towards the end, I'm just kind of like, I try not to drink too much, but towards the end, I'm like kind of shaking, like, all right, gotta use the restroom. And then like at the very end, I'm just gonna say, last shot of the movie, it's zooming out from Native Americans dancing, doing a little ceremony. They're all in formation. It zooms out, and when it shows it all, they're in the shape of a flower. I'm like, all right, it's the shape of a flower. I get it. I'm out of here. And as soon as it cut to black, I'm like, all right, racing to the restroom. I love it, but I gotta go to the bathroom.
I thought that ending was cool too because I think that's a clip from an actual ceremony that the Osage people are having, you know, in modern day. So it's like a little, you know, a little wink to like, well, it's not completely dead still, but they've been through a lot.
Like, to touch on the fact of how, like, they tried to whitewash the Indian bloodline by having these white people marry them and stuff, do either of you have any Native American in you?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
I was about to say for a second, but no, my stepdad's side.
Yeah.
But I've never done, like, a full ancestry thing. Have you?
I haven't, but I know that I do. I have Cherokee, because my grandmother was, like, an 8th, I think, something like that, so I've got, like, a tiny, like, I'm, like, 1/64th or something like that.
I mean, you're actually from Oklahoma, right? So
yeah, I am.
Wouldn't be surprising if you had some in your bloodline.
And by the way, this was filmed in like the parts of Oklahoma where this took place. So I thought that was cool to add some authenticity to it. Most expensive movie ever filmed in Oklahoma.
You mean Twister wasn't more expensive?
I think it was second most expensive.
Okay.
I think everything else. I guess one other little tiny nitpick is that the dialogue was sometimes a little quiet.
Yeah, and everybody speaks like real softly. In most movies nowadays, it seems like everybody speaks really softly unless they're like yelling.
Oh, I will say the soundtrack hooked me in pretty well. I love those guitar riffs. Although towards the end, there's a funeral scene when that sinister guitar riff pulls up. And I loved it at first because they played it whenever they were having like conniving meetings and everything, like, ooh, who are we gonna kill? Or, you know, you're gonna go have this guy do that. They're playing that guitar riff, I'm like, ooh, yeah, nice sinister soundtrack. But then they play that same riff during a funeral scene, I'm like, you should have gone with a little bit more of an emotional beat, you know?
Yeah, I didn't notice those moments necessarily, but I thought like the music added a good vibe to this, where it kept the pace up sometimes where it maybe needed it. I was trying to look up the guy's name. I think it's like Robbie Robertson.
That sounds familiar.
So that's who did the soundtrack or the score for this whole movie, and he was the writer for the band. He was the guitarist for Bob Dylan for a while too. But he was the writer for the band that did
might be where I know.
Up on Cripple Creek and The Wait and all of like the band's major hits, and then
the band like the band
Up on Cripple Creek, The Wait,
Take a load off Annie and stuff.
Yeah.
Speaking of weight, are you proud of how much weight Brendan Fraser lost since The Whale?
Come on now.
So he's also like scored, I think this is his 11th collaboration with Martin Scorsese, and it's his last one. He died 2 months ago.
Oh, wow.
So this is the end of his streak of,
wow.
He did, I mean, almost all of the notable, like starting with Raging Bull, and I think almost straight on through, he's done like every Scorsese movie. So the end of a legend there. And he's like in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and you know.
Yeah.
Anything else you guys want to add, or do we start scoring this thing?
No, nothing really much more to put in off the top of my head.
You should score it first. What's your number for this?
I would just give it a solid 7. It's not. It wasn't a perfect movie for me, at least. I definitely recommend people go see it. But yeah, just that length, man. If this was a mini series, like a 3-parter on Netflix or something like that, Amazon, I would rank it way higher.
Okay. What about you, man?
I think I'm pretty much right there with Casey. I'd probably go like a 7.5. Like I said, it's not my favorite Scorsese movie. I'm probably not going to go back to it. I don't see the need to watch it again. But it is still a really good movie, and the subject matter is fantastic. It's a story. If you don't know it, it's good to know because it's part of our history. See, I'd give it like a 7.5 probably.
I'm a little stronger than that. I'd probably give it like a 9.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm a big Scorsese fan, but also the reason I am a big Scorsese fan is there's something about the mood of his filmmaking or the style of his filmmaking that brings me back to an older way of thought in filmmaking. Or there's something about just the way he does storytelling and everything that I like a lot. So I am going to be biased to like most of these. But we did, in this channel's history, we have reviewed Bringing Out the Dead. And we didn't, that was one that I didn't feel like super strongly toward. I like all of his movies, but to different degrees. But for me, this is up there pretty high.
Nice.
I'd give it a 9 for now. So we have The Wailing coming up next.
Another long one.
Is it long too? I didn't even look.
I think it's like it's over 2 hours for sure, but I mean,
It's
maybe
like
like
240 something, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Bordering 3 hours.
That's nothing compared to 3.5.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. You guys will live.
Yeah, so check out that coming up soon, and hit like below if you like this kind of video. Send it to somebody you think might get something out of this, and yeah, hit subscribe. We're trying to get to 100 subscribers by the end of the year, or more. I'll take more.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, thanks again for all the views we've gotten on some recent videos, especially the When Evil Lurks video. Yeah, keep watching. Watch some of our videos we've done previously, and thanks Casey for showing up for this and being willing to talk about this movie with us. Yeah, we will have you back. But
yes, sir.
But yeah, we'll see you guys again very soon, and thanks for watching as always.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.